became chaplain's assistant to Chaplain Hirsch Levasseur of the 69th Infantry Division. Later, Chaplain Levasseur left the division, was transferred out, and for 3 months, by order of the commanding general, I was acting Jewish chaplain. Then the division received a new chaplain, Chaplain Ernst M. Lorge, who remained with the division until it went home in 1945. On April 26, 1945, we first made contact with displaced persons, refugees, and ex-PWs. I can't tell you the place, but it was somewhere in Germany. On April 28th, we found 250 Jewish women refugees from Auschwitz at Eilenberg. We held a service for them, taking care of many small groups of refugees, feeding them, and so forth. By order of the commanding general, General Reinhardt, the boys in the 69th Division took a 20% cut in rations so that we could have a food caravan to take to the refugees in some of the camps. And we had 5 jeeps loaded with food for over 500 Jewish women in Wurzen, which we took to them on April 29, 1945. On May the 2nd, 45, we discovered 600 Jewish women in Wurzen. We discovered on May the 8th another camp in Grimma with 175 Jewish refugees. All of the refugees in all of the camps were Jewish women. On May 10th, we held a service for the women in Grimma, and they broke into hysterics. The leader of the group was a Rebbitzin who knew exactly what day it was in the Jewish year. She had kept track in her mind exactly what was being done. On May the 16th, we went to Grimma and saw some new refugees, Greek Jews from Salonika. We attempted to get into the Russian territory to get to Wurzen to see the refugees there. Russia had completely taken over that territory. We didn't get very far. We crossed the bridge and went into their command post, but they refused to allow us to go further, so we went back to Naunhof. There are no chaplains in the Russian army. On May the 18th, we received a report that there were 26,000 Jews living in a camp in Theresienstadt, which is under Russian control. On May 19th, 1945, I and Chaplain Lorge each received the Bronze Star Medal for meritorious service in England, France, Belgium, and Germany, especially for our services with the refugees. On May the 20th, we went to Weisenfels and held another Jewish service for Shavuos. It was wonderful. We went to Grimma in the afternoon and saw the refugees. New ones had arrived, having sneaked away from the Russian side. Now that's a story in itself. It seems that the Russian soldiers attempted to make love to the women in Grimma in Wurzen rather, on a Saturday, and the women put off the Russians by telling them that they were not allowed to do anything on the Sabbath. That night, they all attempted to cross over into the American zone. And as it happens, a Jewish soldier was standing guard over that particular portion of the road. He called the chaplain and asked what he should do. We told him to let the Jewish women into the American side, which he did, and that he would not be punished for it. The chaplain would see to it by taking it up with the general. This took place on May the 20th, 1945. During the course, and without being able to give you names and dates, I can tell you that we helped many refugees to escape from the German side of the border. We picked up 2 Jewish sisters and brought them back to our camp and gave them housing and shelter, and they took care of our household needs. It seems, however, that one of the 2 sisters had a brother who they had learned was in Buchenwald. So the chaplain and I took a trip with the 2 girls to Buchenwald to find out if the brother was there. He had been there, we had been told, but he left the day before the Germans gave up the camp. And we could find no trace of him, and we knew not where he went. It happens that a few days later, the chaplain and I were in Leipzig, and the chaplain had to take up some business with another officer there, and while he was in the command post taking up the business with the officer, our jeep, of course, flied the Magen David, the flag of the Jewish chaplain, and I saw a man come over to me who had on a yellow armband with a Jewish star. He asked me in Jewish if I would be able to help him find his sisters, as he went back to Buchenwald and learned that his sisters had been there to see him and that he had left the day before they were there. I knew right then and there that he was the brother of the 2 girls, Irma, and I can't tell you the other girl's name. I put him in the jeep, and when the chaplain came out, I told him the story, and together the 3 of us went back to camp and saw a very happy reunion of the brother and 2 sisters. There were 3 other sisters that we were able to get out from a concentration camp and put them up with shelter and clothing and food. It seemed that during this particular time there was what was known as a kinder transport, a children's transport that would take young children via Switzerland to Israel. And one of the 3 sisters, although she was not a child, was picked, and the other 2 were to remain in Germany. I became very friendly with the driver of the truck that was to take the children to Switzerland, and I bribed the driver of the truck by giving him a couple of cartons of cigarettes, and he put all 3 sisters on the Kinder's transport, and I later learned that all 3 made it to Israel. just about this time, and on June 30th, 1945, we had to give up the territory that we had taken to the Russians, and we moved back to Rothenburg am der Fulda in Germany. We took with us the few refugees that we could. The rest of them remained in Russian territory, and what the outcome was of these refugees, no one knows. I know that Chaplain Lorge can probably give you much more information than I can. He did a great deal to help the refugees, and his only difficulty was in conversing with them because most of them spoke Jewish, and he spoke German as well as English. So I actually acted as the translator, but they all understood the Hebrew prayers and were very pleased to have services held for them. The food, as I said before, was given to them by a 20% cut in the rations in the 69th Infantry Division by General Reinhardt, so that we could take these food jeeps to the refugees and take care of everything that they needed. I would say that the American Army's reaction to our activities was very good on behalf of European Jewry on all levels, particularly General Emil Reinhardt, who was the commanding general of the 69th Infantry Division. We received very splendid cooperation from the supply sergeants and the like. I have no knowledge of whether the chaplain worked with the Jewish Agency during our stay in Europe. You would have to contact him. And also whether he worked for UNRWA is another phase I am unfamiliar with. You see, the Chaplain Lorge left the division on August the 5th, 1945, August the 3rd, 1945, to join the 3rd Division as an occupation division, while I remained with the 69th Infantry Division, acting as their Jewish chaplain until we disembarked for the United States and were discharged at Camp Campbell, Kentucky. To my knowledge, the chaplain was not involved in an Aliyah bet. The only organization to which I think the chaplain was really involved was the National Jewish Welfare Board. We never had any situations arise between the DPs and the United States Army, so that nothing had to be smoothed out. Everything worked out beautifully in our division. The chaplain was not involved in collecting guns, ammunition, or money to be sent to Palestine. There were no other Jewish chaplains in our vicinity, so that the chaplain was unable to contact other Jewish chaplains on the Jewish refugee problem. The chaplains certainly did their share during the period of 1944 to 1948, helping wherever they were needed for our soldiers and also for the refugees. I think the results of the Holocaust, the survivors of the Holocaust, would have been much more severe had not the Jewish chaplains been there to help out when help was actually needed. I feel that I have given you just about everything I can in this situation. Unfortunately, we were not in the battle zone that length of time because we entered combat right after the Battle of the Bulge and saw the finish of the war, and therefore I'm afraid I cannot furnish you with any further facts. If there's any specific questions that you would like to ask, I would be very happy to answer them. My address is Isaac Zaleon, 138 Fifth Avenue, Gloversville, New York. My office is 6 Fremont Street, Gloversville, New York. Zip code 12078.